I've heard some people call some strange things tanks, but yeah, we'll go with this.
To forge the narrative.
Hey everybody, welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul, your host of the Battle of Lost Souls podcast. I'm joined this afternoon by Red Powell.
Hello.
Tanya Gates.
Hi everybody.
And Adam Camilleri.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging with us. If you're new here, we really appreciate you tuning in. If you've been around for a while, you'll know that this is our 8th birthday.
Oh, snap.
No. Been doing
Man,
this.
who would have thought?
Yeah. No, look, I mean, some of the voices and the faces have changed, but been doing this podcast for a long number of years. We're on issue or episode 378, I think this one will be, closing in on 400, and I am trying to line up some special things for episode 400.
But no spoilers?
Well, I don't know if it's going to happen. As soon as I say it, it's not going to happen.
Okay.
If anyone personally knows anyone cool, message me.
How long have you been the direct host, Paul?
Forever. Yeah.
How long has this been your baby? 8 years?
8 years. Yeah. Yeah, I had this idea of wouldn't it just be cool? Like, we already talk about Warhammer all day. Maybe we should record it.
Just record it. I looked up when I started doing podcasting. I looked up the stats on podcasting and stuff, and something like 13% or under sub 20% of podcasts make it past episode 10.
Yeah, that's it. So episode 11 is the
achievement.
wall. Yeah, of
absolute achievement.
And I learned a lot, over the years. And I won't make this like a retrospective or anything, but we get a lot of questions sometimes, from people starting up a podcast. Like, how can I get more listeners? Like, well, try your best to have the best sound quality you can do. Like, actually care about your sound quality, and that's like part of the battle right there. And then just made a choice to try to keep it family friendly. And that's not, this was a personal choice, of course. And sometimes we get a lot of messages from folks saying, I get to enjoy this with people that I care about. I don't know if that's a secret to the longevity or potentially popularity of the show, but it's something that's always encouraging to me to hear. And I try to pass it along to y'all when we see those comments.
I'm fairly new to content creation, but I kind of dip my toes in everywhere. And I think that it's really important that you sort of have a message or a mission statement, something that drives you forward. If you're just making content with no purpose, I think people are going to feel that. And I think that you definitely have a purpose.
Well, thank you. Again, really just enthusiastic about the hobby and like talking to other people who are also enthusiastic about the hobby.
Making content that you want people to be able to share with their loved ones. That's a pretty good message.
No, when I first started listening to FTN, I had a thought that I started playing this game in my early teens, 13, 14, 12, around that age, and I thought it's just good to have a podcast. We are the minority. Like FTN and the way FTN presents itself is the vast minority of the way the wholesome, family-friendly stuff. But it's good that parents can there's a podcast their kids listening to that they can be happy for them listening to, where every other word isn't probably what I spout on my podcasts. So it's just good that it exists, because there needs to be there. It's just simply because of the appeal this game has. It's a universal appeal, and so it should be presented in a myriad of different ways.
It helps hide the fact that we're injecting filthy list out into the meta.
Absolutely.
That's where the true scandalous tragedy comes from, is that there's some pure filth for list. And actually that got brought up recently in a comment is that we do, some people think we have a real slant towards the competitive. Some folks we think we have a slant towards the narrative side of things. And, I've always kind of wanted to talk about what are some great combos and things to watch out there for. But I also want people to, if they care about efficiency of their hobby purchases and hobby time, then I always want to try to never steer them wrong if that's something that they care about. And part of that is sometimes just being efficient, or, how to get the most bang out of your buck for a specific troop or a stratagem or something.
And a lot of the time it's us just talking about the new hotness, like the latest model that comes out from GW, which looks sick and is good to play, because something they tend to do, has they got a new miniature coming out? It's probably going to be pretty good. E.g. Repulsor Executioner. we're not gonna stay here and be like, you shouldn't buy it because it's good. We're gonna be like, it's an awesome model. It's fun to play. It's gonna be good for everybody.
It looks cool. You know you want it. Here's how to get the most out of it. Speaking of getting the most out of it, we're gonna talk more about the Drukhari on this episode. We're talking about some hobby time. There was the White Dwarf. If you pick it up this month, if you got one of the issues in the, I think it comes in like a little mailer, you have the chapter approved Munitorum Field Manual 2020 with point updates, or at least points listed in it. Pocket guide with points. That's pretty cool. There's also no shortage of paint splatter articles in the White Dwarf, which I think really, if you just got a subscription just for the paint splatter, you would be doing yourself good.
So I mean, and I know I've talked about it before. I love the different articles they have in there. I mean, not even just the armies they put on display, of course, look amazing. I really love the lore and the bits that they've started to put in there because, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, you think about White Dwarf, you go back to some of the earlier renditions of White Dwarf and how they were releasing material along with it. And so, you know, we talk about the competitive stuff. I can't say I might talk about Crusade more. I mean, maybe not statistically and over a long period of time, but I might talk about Crusade more than you talk about Blood Angels as of recently, Paul.
And
so,
that's a big call, man.
Yeah, I was going to say that's lofty.
I'm gonna push it. I'm gonna achieve it. If you guys don't believe me now, you tell me when to stop. But so like the cool thing with these, there's flashpoints, right? And so it comes with lore. It comes with these cool articles that are being written, like here's what's happening and whatnot. And then they have Crusade rules. And so I was playing, or campaign rules and whatnot. I was playing a mission last weekend with a friend where there were unexploded ordnance across the field that like every turn they could possibly go off with some kind of virus bomb deal. All the ruins and buildings and defense lines were booby trapped. I was on the offense because I was playing Khorne, of course, and I was attacking my buddy, and all of his defenses were booby trapped. And so every time I crossed through buildings, ruins, or defense line, I had to roll to see if I triggered his booby traps that he had. And then there was we had like carnivorous arachnids in any of the area terrain that like would reduce our strength. And then we also threw on some other, I mean, because they have multiple scenarios. You can build out all these different scenarios and all this cool stuff that was just fun to play with and throw on top of it. And the White Dwarf, I mean, that's just from one White Dwarf. And the next part is like, if you keep reading down, they have the Exorcists. The entire Exorcist chapter is in there in this most recent one with rules like a Relic, Warlord Traits, and stratagems to play the Exorcists. And then it has all their lore laid out. And I mean, that's like, you know, I'll talk about Blood Angels. Here you go, Paul. I mean, that's where Blood Angels started in a White Dwarf kind of deal, right?
I thought you said The Exorcist. No, sir. I was about to get in there.
But just saying, it's a pretty awesome. It's amazing.
No, it is. It's a quality magazine, and I feel strongly about encouraging people to pick it up. One, I like getting it because it's just like another connection to the hobby, and then you see these cool things, and you're all right. They're putting out game content in it, which, you know, it is supplemental, not a requirement. But I'm telling you, the paint splatters in most of the paint splatter articles, they don't skip any steps. They walk you through the whole process to achieve the look of what they have in the book. And in this particular one on page 67, they give a pretty easy to follow description on how to paint Beltane vehicles with the thorns and the vines and stuff. And that is an intimidating project. Like I play this faction. I have learned to paint the vines over time. It took me like 15 years to learn how to do it. But mostly because I would get the vehicle up to like the standard I thought looked pretty good on the table, and I was afraid to go in and lay, you know, a black line on it in any capacity for fear that I was going to completely ruin the whole thing.
I relate to that a lot, especially with like Cadian camo. The first time when I started doing Cadians, I would just paint them green. I didn't put the camo stripes on them or drawing the pattern, especially like drawing it by hand. I always thought, you have to get some putty or mask it off or do something because I can't just risk just slapping what was Xandri dust at the time onto this beautiful, nice base coat with, you know, usually I've recess shaded, maybe even highlighted it by then. But yeah, getting that courage up, it's a big deal, isn't it? Yeah, as soon as you break through that wall, you're like, whew, I'm free to do whatever I want now.
There's a trick. So, you know, with doing something like this, typically the bolder the better. And that takes a lot of courage to work up to because, you know, if you want to make and you have to kind of practice to make the vines look organic, because your vines, like, look, I've tried this. I was trying to paint diamonds on a harlequin. They end up being squares, because I kept correcting them until they were not diamonds anymore. So it can happen. So I suggest practicing on something other than your tank, but getting comfortable with what a real organic pattern looks like, and then they give you a path here with steps in this tutorial that you can kind of look at and kind of check your work against it, and it's nice to see. So you got that kind of stuff in every White Dwarf, and it just happens to be something I care about. But that you'll find, and we talked about this before. You may not actually want to paint that particular miniature, but you might want to use that effect on other miniatures, and it's just kind of neat to be exposed to these colors and techniques and combinations of things, in this setting of reading about the hobby.
Can I give a painting tip on how to paint vehicles?
Yeah, please.
So I paint I play guard, and I paint all of my vehicles with a brush, and so many people ask me if I airbrush them. And there's two things that I do to make them look airbrushed. One, I use a filbert brush to do the base coats. Do you know what that looks like?
I was about to say, is that a big fat one or something?
I do use a big fat one, but it's a very specific. So it's like a flat brush with like a rounded kind of tip. And
you could have put a gun to my head and I would not have known that was a filbert brush, but I think I know what you're talking about.
No idea. Yeah.
And for some reason, that brush leaves like the least amount of brush strokes. And then like the second pro tip is get a really good matte coat, because that really good matte coat will like smooth out like 20% of any brush strokes that you might have on there.
Kind of almost like emulsifies some of the brush strokes.
Yeah, it's magic.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that. That's my tip for vehicles. If you're ever feeling scared.
Believe this, in 2021, some people still do not seal their models.
What do you mean by seal? You mean varnish, or you mean like undercoat?
Yeah, no, some kind of varnish. Yeah.
I don't seal on mine. I seal the ones I care about, but for my 300 guardsmen, they ain't sealed.
25% of this podcast cast right now does not seal their models.
Oh my gosh. So I seal my models twice if I know that it's going to be a tournament army, and then I love to see the look on everybody's faces as I just like scoop up 20 guardsmen at a time in my hands and then just like dump them in my tray. Like the look of horror on people's faces because like my stuff's painted all right. It's like, it's not Golden Demon. It's all right. So, I put effort into it, and people look horrified when they see how I do not take care of my guard army.
I thought you were going to say you sealed it twice to make up for Adam not sealing his at all. So you're trying to restore the hobby balance. I just don't get it. I mean, I think, I guess, but same, Tanya, to your point, I know that I'm going to, I paint, most of my models get painted because they're going to get played with. And,
100% of mine do.
And I want that. And then maybe, and also, there is a bit of a technique to sealing the models, because if you try to seal on a cold, rainy day, you might get a cloud or something, and it might distort the color. So that I can see how people are a little bit seal shy, but when it's sunny, it's like 60 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is, Celsius, like 400 or something. I don't know, but
it goes the other way.
Oh, does it?
Yes. Severely.
Run out there and seal your models, and
get back in. Do you guys use rattle can varnish or paint varnish or airbrush varnish?
All of the above. I have a little bit of, I have some varnish in a pot that I sometimes brush on and sometimes airbrush. And then I use rattle can.
I'm almost exclusively rattle can, unless I absolutely need something clear coated right now and it is raining outside.
Yeah.
And then I use a brush on.
The ones I've had the most trouble with have been the rattle can varnishes. I've had very little problems with the brush on, and I've had zero problems with the airbrush varnishes. But the rattle can, I don't know. Some seem to have less pressure, some have more pressure, some have better coverage. I don't know why that is. Or maybe it's just the brands we have over here.
It could be the brands. It could be the age of the can. It could be the temperature of the can.
That's true. Yeah, the age of the can would be a big deal too. Yeah.
It could be how the veracity in which you shake the can up. There is a little bit of voodoo involved.
Love it.
But still worth it. You just got to find the technique that works. And also, if you put on a coat of matte or satin varnish and it clouds up, you can hit it with a coat of gloss and it just erases it.
Mm-hmm.
It hits it back, yeah.
And then you knock it back with the satin again, or matte again, whatever your choice is. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, or you could just be me and just get your husband to do it for you.
There you go.
Dang.
Yeah.
Oh, can I get your husband to do my
Yeah,
varnish
really.
for me?
Yeah, you probably would.
Start a new service.
Mail your models to me.
Oh, what a cool thing! I'm an
Yeah, it's
international
wonderful.
model sealer. That's my profession.
I live in a desert,
Yeah.
so it's all good. I'll get them done. No clouds.
But anyway, there are. I know people may have been burned in the past, but I do think that by and large, the sealer product, even the ones you can get from the hardware store, like just some whatever quality brand that the big box Home Depot or Walmart has, is good enough.
Alternatively, you could be like me and you could get a professional artist grade sealant. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
I actually order it by the case.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Don't even mess around.
Nope.
Can
Can you
It's
send me a
amazing.
link to
though.
that?
Yeah,
I'm down to
of course
check
I
that
can.
out.
Hey,
So-
it's a big brand, so you could find it at any art store.
I want to know where the professional sealers go for their the
It's
professional
literally-
sealer's choice.
It's just for canvases.
But sometimes I'll
okay.
brush it on, especially I'm about to apply a decal and I don't want to go through the hassle of getting the thing out, if the temperature's wrong or something, outside.
Mm.
I'll brush on some for a decal, or just to, sometimes you want the wash to behave a certain way that it won't behave over a matte finish
Yeah.
or something, or satin finish or whatever. You want it to behave in a very specific way. And sometimes I go with a brush on to make that thing and do its thing. So the wash does what it wants, or what I want it to do, hopefully. And that could just be a little fantasy in my head. I feel like it gives me a slight advantage if I put that extra step, but sometimes it does.
It totally does. If you try to put a wash over a super matte paint, it just doesn't. It doesn't flow right, for sure. So I could see that
tea stain.
Yeah. It just sometimes it doesn't even flow into the recesses. So that makes sense. That's a good tip for paint on varnish for sure.
I know we normally do the hobby segment at the end of the show, so
Whoops.
we're going to talk about Drukhari. I know I probably took us off on a tangent with the White Dwarf, but I was just really happy to see the Beltane in there, and then I know the Exorcists are something that are cool for me because Badab War stuff is making some appearances without reference to the Badab War for whatever
How about that?
that's worth. Yeah, no conspiracy theories. Let's all just let's go.
Come on, Huron. Let's go.
Yeah, New Huron. Oof, I'd be so happy.
Primaris Huron.
Primaris Huron.
Wow. Yeah, that's something he'd do as well.
Juice me.
Yeah.
Abaddon got it. All we need is another base with another Ultramarine lieutenant on
He
it.
just Abaddon got chaosified. It wasn't necessarily
True, I know. There's he's got books and everything. I got it.
Well, let's jump into these Drukhari.
So first thing when I cracked it open that got me excited was the favored retinues. Just every book that's coming out right now has this special flavor thing. You can pay some extra points at the start of the game for your beloved dark angels. You can make somebody a death company. For my dark angels, you can go to the Death Wing. For Necrons, etc., you can special up your Cryptex and such. But for Dark Eldar, you get back some of the OG spicy special units. Like you can upgrade Cabalites to be Trueborn again. You can do Witches back to Blood Brides. And I love this idea. I think this is a really elegant way for GW to bring back these really beloved units that people really, really enjoyed. And a lot of people that I know still have units model up to be these guys, especially.
Did the Trueborn get the special weapon proliferation?
So
no,
no, not necessarily. But I mean, I would argue what they do get is pretty baller.
Let's hear it.
Agreed.
Go ahead, Adam. Take it away.
So for the so I'll do the Trueborn, and someone else can do the Blood Brides. But so Trueborn for what is it? It is 2 points per model in addition to how much you would pay for a Cabalite warrior. You get a 2+ ballistic skill. You hit on a 2 instead of a 3. You get +1 to your leadership, and each time this unit model this unit make a ranged attack, you can ignore any or all ballistic skill and hit roll modifiers. So they ignore forests, they ignore shoot, they ignore Styges or ally talk or any negs to hit, any spells of that nature. They're just always going to hit on a 2. I like this a lot.
Well, I like this. It's got that language in there that you can ignore any or all.
That's right.
Yeah.
You choose.
Yeah.
You choose.
what I like about this is for 2 points per model, you'd probably just pay that for the 2+ to hit, wouldn't you? For 2 points per model more than what a Cabalite is.
Yeah, for the quality
2+
weapons and the ability to buff them, like we said before, our buff things with those weapons in the last episode.
Yeah, exactly right. So a current Cabalite is 8 points, so to go to 10 points a model, and you're probably looking at a 10-man. If you're going to do this, you're going to go to a 10-man. So it's 100 points. 100 points for the unit. It's not a hell lot. It's the same amount of wounds as a unit of 5 intercessors. It's the same thing. They hit better. You can never make them hit worse. They've got the same leadership now, or better. And yeah, I actually really like this unit. I think they're quite good. And I wouldn't be surprised to see one in most armies, but who knows? We'll see how it plays out with the rest of the buffs and et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, a heavy duty loadout, 10 of them. That's 1 Dark Lance, 2 blasters, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's 3. That's 3 strength 8, AP -4 weapons. Blasters are still D6. Dark Lance is 3 plus D3. And the fact that they can't be modified, so they can move and shoot that Dark Lance without subtracting anything. It's a pretty big deal. Put them on a Raider.
You can have 2 splinter cannons in there, yeah?
Yeah, somewhere along that. Flip down to their
page. I
can't
remember if it's...
I know at 10 you get a heavy weapon.
Yeah, you definitely get a heavy weapon at a 10. But dude, I really like the unit. I think it's nice and flexible. The points aren't too much, and what you're getting is legitimate value.
Yeah, every 10 models they get a Dark Lance or a Splinter Cannon. Every 5 models they get a Blaster or a Shredder.
Of course. Yep.
And you can't combat squad them.
Nope. Don't need to. Don't need to.
Everything gets compared to Blood Angels.
Womp, womp. Yeah, so those dudes are hot. And you know what? Like, it's so awesome. I understand, I still don't have all of my named characters back, but when I was really rolling with this, I had Duke Sliskus for those of us that were playing back when old Duke Sliskus was in it.
Oh, that was a really nice combo back then.
Oh, man. He was awesome, right? Because you could increase he increased the poison of the weapons and everything, and then he also helped with deep striking and raiders and whatnot. It was awesome. And so, but that aside, I had my own little crew of Trueborn that I rolled specifically with him because you could give them the shard carbines and whatnot, and they could just unload massive amounts of fire into them. Well, so I have 10 because I wanted them to just be obnoxious because I knew how much of a troll unit that was. My Dark Eldar typically have purple, the awesome, because I love just the plates and everything, but highlighted purple armor. But the under armor has usually been a green or something like that. But for this, I went for cotton candy pink. It was awesome. It was so funny because you knew when the pink squad rolled in.
That was appropriately obnoxious for his rules at the time.
That's right.
Mine was painted a bright yellow.
There you go. See? Makes sense, right?
Yeah. I said, no argument over here.
Yeah. So
the reason I'm really happy to see this one back, especially, I've got mates of mine who spent a humongous amount of money to put incubi heads on 20 to 30 Cabalites. They still got rifles and all that goodness. They're not kitted out with blasters or anything. But I love that those guys get to be hey, these are Trueborn again. This amazing amount of effort I put into my hobby and all this stuff that I love, I get to use legitimately for what they were supposed to be. I think that's just cool.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and they just kept going, right? Because we start getting into the blood brides, and then they went the next step and added in upgraded homunculus coven units, right? And so it's the blood brides. I really think, again, we were talking about last time just how much they did for the witches in general, and so it's same kind of deal. It's 2 points per model. And for every Master Succubus unit you have, you can upgrade 1. Models in this unit, it increases their weapon skill to a 2+, add 1 to leadership, very similar. But then each time an attack made by a model in this unit would trigger the Blade Artist. The armor penetration characteristic of that attack is increased by 3 instead of 1, which is just, that's, you're talking about. I think these witch units are really some units that can clean up what's left after the Dark Eldar do everything else. And I think that a unit like this, especially with some of the stuff that's out there for the witch cults, this increase on weapon skill 2 just enough is pretty bad. And what a succubus can do as far as rerolling for wounds and all. I mean, it's really good, really, really good. And so there's them, and then of course these the new coven unit, coven upgrade.
Are y'all leaving me to try to pronounce this thing?
Oh yeah, I'm not. I can barely pronounce incubi and a bunch of other things. You get to go for this one.
I'm an uncouth Australian. I back off from this one.
It's got to be Homoxides?
or
As good as I could have done it.
I mean, yeah, I was like, because I was thinking like kind of like homunculus, so like homoxites, homoxites. I don't know. I got nothing.
I'm going to go with Homoxides.
All right, homoxides it is. Homoxides.
Sounds Greek.
Increasing
like
their save.
It sounds like a Greek god.
It's a constellation.
It's
You just turn left into Homoxides.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So they've already got a 5-up feel no pain, and then you can they increase their. So instead of increasing weapon skill or ballistic skill, they increase their save by 1 and their invuln save, which is a pretty big deal because they start with 6, turn 1. And then by turn 4, they go to a 5-up. But with this, they go to a 4-up. And then, of course, increase their leadership. Mm-hmm. And then this next part is huge, especially given this unit in general, what they do for covens. Once per phase, the first time a saving throw has failed for this unit, the damage characteristic of that attack is changed to 0.
We've only seen this once before, haven't we? It's the Helix Gauntlet on Infiltrators had the same effect.
That's right. That's correct. So you're making a really tough coven unit out of this. And so, put it in some of these other units, and it has the ability to hang in there. And then you take some of this, the Master Homunculus, and he's got for example, like the Twisted Animator ability, which is returning D3 destroyed models back to the unit. So you can just bring. I mean, so the trick here, and I think it's a good balance, because usually these troop units go from 5 to 20 models, but for the favored units, these 3 special ones we just finished listing, they can only go to a maximum unit of 10. Which I think is a really good balance. I think that's an excellent balance, honestly.
What was it before?
And it's once per it's once per phase. It turns the damage to 0.
Yes. Yeah. Once per phase.
The first time a saving throw has failed for this unit, the damage characteristic of that attack is changed to 0.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
fire the last cannon.
Sorry,
last.
did you? Question, Red. Did you just say these guys can only have 10 mans?
Yes. Yeah, they can only go to 10.
Yes, so if you do upgrade them with these upgrades, you can only have 10 mans, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Because otherwise
that's
you can't have 20, 20
of
of any of these.
Yeah, sorry, but that's the case with all 3 of them.
Yes, all 3 of them.
So I was just pointing that out in case some people were confused. There is a caveat when you upgrade them with these 3 upgrades that you can only have a max of 10 per squad.
Yep.
But yeah, they're really cool. Do you want to jump in and did you want to talk about the upgraded HQs?
Oh, I mean, sure. Yeah. Why not? You want to kick off with the Archon?
Yeah, sure. So this was kind of previewed by Warhammer community as well. So you can upgrade your Archon, your Succubus, your Homunculus, and this is kind of the most of like little tinkering and upgrades you can do with your army that we've seen from any of the codexes so far. I think that Space Marines being able to do it with pretty much every HQ they've got is probably more than this. But for 15 points, you can upgrade your Archon to be essentially a Master Archon, and you get as you would if you were upgrading your captain to a chapter master, you get access to a relic, a HQ, and an extra special bonus. And the extra special bonus being Splintered Genius in this case. Once per battle at the end of the fight phase, this model is within engagement range of any enemy models. It can just fight again for free. So getting that on what is a much more killy version of the same thing we had last edition, or last Codex, is really kind of exciting. In addition to that, the relic is the Soul Helm. Each time an attack is made that targets the bearer, subtract 1 from the hit roll. And of course, on top of that, each time the bearer would lose a wound, roll a d6, the wound is not lost. So it gets a 5-up, feel no pain, and -1 to hit, essentially, and the Warlord Trait being add 1 to the damage characteristic of all melee weapons equipped by him. So you put all those 3 together, -1 to hit with a 5-up invuln, gets to fight twice with +1 damage to all their attacks. Man,
as long as you're not swinging a relic.
Yeah, as long as you don't. Yeah, you have to take that what he comes with. But it's a pretty good swathe of upgrades to make this guy. Pretty much, if you just want him to be if you want him to be just a buffing unit, you just don't take this. If you want a frontline behemoth Archon, like you did, you guys remember the 5th edition Archons?
Oh yeah.
Jeez, they were terrifying. This is like back to where that was.
Yeah, they still get the Shadow Field, so he can be kind of tanky. But now he's dealing out damage with that +1 damage.
Yeah, exactly right. I think it's exciting. I think it's a really good buff. Who wants to hit up the which one if they're keen?
Well, I mean, let me expound on this for just a second if I can. Is that each time an attack is made that targets the bearer, subtract 1 from that hit roll. So not only is he harder to hit with a 2+ save. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I don't know what the math is, but it sounds hard to kill this guy.
Well, and the issue was, as soon as you failed that 2+ save, the first time, pretty much he was dead straight after that. But in this case, he's got a 5 up feel no pain as well to back that up. So he can stick around a lot longer. First and foremost, you're gonna be taking less saves because he's harder to hit. And then once you do fail that shadow field, he's harder to kill past that, which I think all of this is just a 15-point exponential increase.
Yeah, agreed. Oh, that's pretty strong. Sorry, Red, you want to do the show stealer?
Yeah, the show stealer indeed. So when it comes to the Succubus, I mean, there's this Master Succubus deal. Like, I really, so I was sitting there saying that the witches are kind of the closers to a certain extent. This is the real closer right here. This is the thing that when it's going to go in there and it's going to kill something, it's really going to kill something. When you consider, so the upgraded Succubus gains that keyword and the show stealer witch cult spectacle, so that each time this model makes a consolidation move, it can move an additional 3 inches, and it does not have to finish this move closer to the closest enemy model. So that's 6 inches, and as long as it doesn't get based, this model, because in the basic rules it says specifically that if you get based, you cannot move any further. But if you are not based, you can move 6 inches anywhere you want.
To that objective.
Yep, wherever you want to go, or put yourself in a fight with something else, or just ruin someone's day.
Anytime we've seen the ability to move wherever you want with this amount of distance, it's always been kind of dirty.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Pile in, consolidate in and out of combat with impunity. Go in and attack, and then bail before they get to hit you back. It's really strong.
So they've got the Relic, the Dancer's Edge, which is cool. They've got the Warlord Trait, Whirling Death, and that was some of the stuff was already previewed. But I just want to flip to, okay, so you do that. That's a massive ability to give a Succubus, like any of the Succubuses that you could build, to give them that abilities. When you go down and you look at some of this stuff, like I'm flipping down real quick to the Relics, and you consider the Triptych Wit. It's a poisoned weapon, 2+ on a 2+ poisoned weapon. Each time the bearer is selected to fight, add 3 to their attack characteristic until the end of the phase. That's AP -3, 2 damage, right? And then you go to Warlord Traits for Witch Cult, and you look at precision blows. Each time an unmodified hit roll of 6 is made for a melee attack by this warlord, the target unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the damage characteristic of the weapon used for that attack, and the attack sequence ends.
Yeesh.
There's a lot to this, right? Like, I mean, you're talking just shutting things down. You're talking about creating mortal wounds out of this with the amount of attacks that they're putting out. And then you go to something like the stratagem called Potent Metallotoxins for 2 CP. Use the stratagem in your shooting or fight phase when you select a Drukhari unit from your army to shoot or fight. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack is made with a poisoned weapon, like the whip that it says excluding rope, sorry, so that takes this out, but an agonizer or something to that effect. By that unit, the ability does not exclude vehicle units, and so you're suddenly wounding vehicle units with poison weapons. And so, of course, the whip being 2+, but there are other weapons, the agonizers, things like that.
I've always been a big fan of the agonizer. My opponents never seem to roll less than a 4.
Sure, yeah, exactly. And so it's just it's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that the Succubus might be the most improved. Well, so the Witch Cults, I think, might be the most improved facet of Dark Eldar from this book.
That's going to be my next question after the break, to see which one, if we think it's going to be like the Covens are going to be unseated as the most powerful one. I do think the Covens are the Homunculus Covens have been the top of the heap for Drukhari for a while.
Oh, sure.
The next one is the point upgrade for the Alchemical Maestro, and this is expensive, 20 points. Once per battle, when this model is destroyed, you can choose to roll a d6 at the end of the phase instead of using any rules that are triggered when this model is destroyed. If you do so, then on a 2+, set this model back up on the battlefield as close as possible to where they were destroyed, but not within engagement range of any enemy model with d3 wounds remaining.
Nice.
2+?
So how many points was that?
20.
Yeah. 2+, man.
I mean, of course, that opens up the Relic and the Warlord Trait.
And that Warlord Trait is awesome for our Homunculus. It's great. Take a rack unit within 3 inches, D3 destroyed models added back to the unit during the command phase. That's great. The models can be set up within engagement range of enemy units that are already within engagement range. It's big. It's real big. Man. Like, I mean, there's just some good stuff. Yeah. So, Paul, were you hinting at a break
Oh no, we will break here in a minute, but then we'll come back and talk about like what's if there's anything over the top here. But the relic is so the Warlord trait is what you just mentioned, the twisted animator. In your command phase, you can select one friendly homunculus covered rack within 3 inches of the Warlord. D3 destroyed models can be added back to the unit, so like a mega apothecary, I guess. These models can be set up within engagement range. Good times. And then the relic is the Poisoner's Ample. Once per battle at the end of the movement phase, the bearer can use this relic. If it does so, select one enemy unit within 9 inches of the bearer. Roll 1d6 on a 2+ hit unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Until the start of your next turn, any aura abilities that unit has have no effect. Yeah,
and it's not. And so that D6 is completely unrelated to this part that you just said. The D6 is all about suffering mortal wounds. The next part just happens.
Yeah, and then there's another bullet point. Until the start of your next turn, that unit cannot be affected by the aura abilities of friendly models.
Man, you just select one of those. Like the utility to that one relic is pretty on point.
Yeah, but you get them all.
You get them all. Yeah, you don't have to pick one of them. You just pick a unit. Unit
Oh
within
yeah,
9,
select,
and then all three happen to them.
Yep, that's right. Select one unit. Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just you basically just sit there and beat them about the face and neck with your agonizer for a turn, and they can get no benefit from apothecaries around them or anything like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to be turned off using that. It's really good.
Well, we're seeing that, and I like that. We're seeing this more and more kind of creep in but this is very specific to this one type of HQ, and I don't know. That's what they need. So, or that's what this army needs. I don't know if it's what that HQ specifically needs, but it's going to allow them to their kind of like real deadly and slickness and the scalpel effect. I think to take it to really play out here.
Yeah, I agree. Also, a lot of people are defending the meat and potatoes of their army with things like Fights Last. And I think this is a very good way of getting around that.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we can take a break. We'll take a break and then come back and talk about again what we think, what the mix of a Drukhari list is going to look like once this Codex is in everybody's hands. See you in a second.
See you in a minute.
FTN is brought to you by Discount Games Inc. Please visit them at www.discountgamesinc.com. And don't forget to ask Jay about ways to save even more on your hobby projects.
Hey everybody, we are back. Let's look at everybody here, and we're going to talk about the absolute best Drukhari list ever. I don't know about ever. That's like a bold statement. Look, we're going to give some theories on what we think is going to be potentially a mix for a dominant list for Drukhari.
So I think, we talked about it last time, but I think for sure, a lot of builds, you'll see the real space raider detachment. I think the ability to include the Archon, the Succubus, and the Homunculus, and upgrade all three of them and benefit from that. And then to have the Archon ability to buff, really everything in the, all the core units. So to include the witches and incubi.
Yeah. And scourges. That's.
Yep. It's huge, right? It's a really big deal. So I think there's a lot to that. I think there's, you upgrade those three, you take the, I think it's Alliance of Ruin, Alliance of Agony, which essentially you give them all, they all get their Warlord Trait, which is awesome. And then you can take those, 3 special units we just finished labeling, if you wanted to, and then build out the rest of the detachment. And so I think it's a really awesome way to kind of start off with this core, and you can leverage the different aspects of the army there, because they each get their own, obsessions appropriately that then affect their units within them. And so, witches affect the cults and so on and so forth. It's awesome. I think that's a great build for anyone to go from there. What do you think, Adam?
I absolutely agree. I think the way you can build a Drukhari list now is all the power is in the hands of the player. It used to be that your hands were kind of tied. It was like, well, either I take a single battalion or I take the 3 patrols. And now it's the same thing, but you take that battalion, you get to have your cake and eat it too. I think it's a really elegant way that they've gone about it. As for what I think the core of the list is, I think the best list is going to be a medley. It's going to be a medley of probably, in my mind, it's probably either going to be witches and cabals or witches and homunc. I feel like witches are looking like the strongest core to build around all of a sudden.
Witches.
which it was covens. You would build all you'd build in you'd lock in your couple units of Rax or your big units of Talos, and then you'd attach everything to that. Your Cabal units would be your Ravagers and maybe some Venoms with some Cabalites in it, etc., etc. But now I'm feeling like it's going to be the Witches. You're starting off with your 1 or 2 big blocks of Witches, and then adding in some MSU in either you want one big block of Rax, and then some bits and pieces for Cabalites. I still think Poison is very good. Unfortunately, I think Poison is going to be hampered by the fact that there is so much 1+ and 2+ armor saves out there that I'm not quite sure how it's going to sit. I do think the buff to the Splinter Cannons is huge, and it's going to be instrumental in things like Venoms staying relevant. I think a double Splinter Cannon Venom is still very, very potent with the 2 damage. But yeah, the homunculus stuff, the homunculus covens, I'm trying to get my head around where they sit at the moment. What are your thoughts there?
No, I think the homunculus the covens are force multipliers in this case. They can hang in there. They've got a lot of resiliency. I think that there's something to it. So I mean, I ran 20 grotesques, right? And you can't do that anymore because grotesques are now units of 6. You don't need to because you have incubi. And Prophets of Flesh are not what they were, right? Like they're not 4-up invulns out the gate. They have the cool deal where if you're attacking them with something under a strength characteristic of 8 or more, they, unmodified wound rolls of 1 or 3 fail, which is cool. The really big thing I think that goes with them, with the Prophets of Flesh specifically, is that they've got that good old Vexator mask. Enemy units cannot fire Overwatch, so you can just, not a huge deal, but really playing into between the incubi and I'm a huge fan looking at the Warlord traits for the Archon, the ancient evil. I'd have to. It's ancient something, but for the Warlord traits for them, it's this ability to. It's another like fights last ability, and so then you add on the Vexator mask, and then you add in incubi, and you've got. Let's say you add in Drazar. That's multiple abilities to make people fight last. And so you're really controlling the tempo of combat, and so cool stuff. But I think that there's a lot of durability to it, and I think that the covens are there. But I totally agree with your statement that the witches have really taken some primacy in this, and I think that's great given where they've been previously. Where and honestly, the Cabalites I feel are kind of not in the worst way by any means. They still have some play, but they're not like this. It's not like the Cabalites just came out of nowhere and are now like this crushing deal. They're actually kind of more on the fringe. Like if you think about it, if you're going to upgrade units, as much as I just talked about, like my pink Trueborn and everything and how much I enjoyed them. If there was any way in which I was going to prioritize it, to a certain extent, like the witches are probably going to get jumped first, just because you're looking at the cults and everything and their abilities, and then maybe the Rax because of their durability and what you can add. I'm a huge fan looking at the Dark Creed, right? So Aura of Terror, within 6 of the units with the obsession, subtract 1 from leadership and subtract 1 from combat attrition test. Of course, combat attrition doesn't affect Space Marines, but reducing their leadership down, and then you start playing the Tormentor game with the incubi. It makes the Dark Creed, Rax, or any of their stuff, whether it's Grotesques or Talos or Chronos or what have you, it really makes them up. It puts them in there. I think that there's really something to that I think people should probably be looking at. They've also got, just like, so taking that relic that we were talking about, the poison ampule. If you look at the Warlord trait for the Dark Creed, they have at the end of the movement phase, select 1 enemy unit within 9 inches of this Warlord, roll 3d6 if the result is greater than the enemy unit's leadership until the start of your next movement phase. That enemy unit cannot perform actions, and it loses the objective secured ability.
There's a whole lot of denial in this. I mean,
there is. There's a ton, because if you've got Vect from the Cabals, if you've got this, I mean, there's just a ton of little things that I think all of this stuff, when you bring it together, is just going to chip away at other people's ability to just play the game.
Yeah, so that Warlord trait you mentioned earlier, the Ancient Evil, is at the start of the fight phase. You can select 1 enemy unit when the engagement range of this Warlord unit is not eligible to fight this phase until after all eligible units from your army have done so.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's not a fight in initiative order or fight before all of the chargers or whatever. It's just not eligible to fight this phase, and it's a Cabal Warlord trait.
Yeah.
Man, So good. I really feel that with the combination of essentially being able to take 3 supplements in the same detachment, it's going to make Dark Eldar be a very, very strong but very high skill ceiling finesse army. You're going to be able to. I think it's going to be good in a lot of people's hands. But I'm starting to get the picture that getting the most out of them is actually going to be hard to do, and that's because there is so much to get out of them. I'm just looking at witches here, so. 3 attacks, movement of 8, so extremely quick. 3 attacks base. They've all got, was it Hecatari Blades? Yeah, Hecatari Blades, which is just strength user -1 rend. They've got -1 rend now and +1 attack. So essentially, they've got Astartes chainswords to all intents and purposes, and they got +1. So each one has 4 attacks each. This is before you add in witch cults, before you add in combat drugs, before you add in any buffs. They've got 4 attacks each. And there's a couple of different things you can do. The Hecatrix has, of course, 4 attacks base, goes to 5 with the Hecatari Blade, or you swap it out for a Razor Flail, which is also -1 rend, but you get to make 2 attacks instead of 1. So it's got 8 attacks before witch cults, before combat drugs. These I had a fear, that when witch cults came out, because I feel like witch cults has always been the weak link. As long as I've been in the game, witch cults have been the weak link in the trio.
Sure.
Yeah, the shooty dynamic aspect from the Cabals. You had the resilience and the reliability from the Covens, and the witch cults just felt like the ugly stepchild. It felt like they were trying to be Harlequins, but they weren't. They're never going. G-Dub couldn't make him as good as Harlequins, because then Harlequins would be redundant. They feel on par or better than Harlequins now for the points.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I think that's super exciting.
Exactly. Look at No Escape, right? I know it's not necessarily
they just
new
have
thing,
it now.
but so go to it and then look at the bonus that they added to it now.
Each time an enemy unit, excluding Titanic units, that is within engagement range of this unit is selected to fall back. Roll off with your opponent, subtracting 1 for your opponent's roll for each model in this unit that's equipped with a Chardonnet and Impaler. If you win, that unit cannot fall back this turn.
So then Chardonnet Impaler, what's its stats again? I'm sorry, Paul.
Chardonnet Impaler is damage 2, -2. Each time the bearer fights, it makes 1 additional attack with this weapon.
Oh, man.
Chardonnet and Impaler.
Yeah, dude. So strong.
I think that's huge.
Very excited.
I think that's a big deal.
Yeah. 2 damage, -2.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, that's the thing. So we were talking about the Real Space Raider detachment, and I don't want. There's a lot of utility to that. There's huge, and by no means, I think a secondary or an alternate course of action that people could consider is what they offered up by taking. If all of your detachments are patrols, then none of your detachments cost anything. They're 0 CP, and so that means that going into the game, you're 12 plus 3 right out the gate because you have a Warlord, your Battle Forged, and everything. So you're at 15 CP that you can then spread the love around with some of this stuff. I think it's totally worth considering. We're talking about these 3 different upgrades. You could, in theory, have 3 patrols that each have a master something. So you could have, different detachments. They have to be different detachments. You can't have a same like Master Succubus from the same detachment or same cult in 2 different detachments. It doesn't work like that. You've got to have them split. And so you could have 3 patrols, and this is how you can plus up to have more of these the special units. You could have more of arguably you could have 3 patrols of Cabalites with 3 different master archons of different types, different obsessions, and then you could have 3 Trueborn units all loaded out with 10 of them with 2 blasters and a dark lance, and they're all hitting on 2s without any modifiers.
A quick note on the witches before we get too far away from it is that in order to start getting some of the special weapons, you have to raise the squad up to 10, where the minimum squad size is 5. And you can get 1 Chardonnet and Impaler per 10. So a 20-man or a 20 witch unit, you then get 2 Chardonnet and Impalers. So, max of -2 on the data slate.
Yeah.
I like that you can't get them in a 5-man, because I would just take a brigade's worth of 5-mans, Just be like, can't fall back. Oh, you want to fall back? Sorry, can't fall back.
Not today. Yeah. So I just didn't want to get too far away from that and not mention that it is a limiting factor.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a really good point.
Good foresight by G-Dub.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm just the flexibility to do that or to do with the patrols or whatnot. Like, I don't feel necessarily bend in that I have to have whatever to that extent. I mean, fortunately, I've got some witches that I'm excited to bring out. I'm so glad to see the Reavers and Hellions. I'm sorry, Tanya. I didn't want to have to bring the Hellions into this, but I have to. There's a really cool stratagem called Deadly Rivals for 2 CP. You use this stratagem in your command phase. Select 1 Reavers unit from your army and 1 Hellions unit from your army, noting that they don't have to be the same cult or, they don't have to have the same obsession, that are within 12 inches of and visible to each other. And until the end of the turn, add 1 inch to the movement characteristics of models in these units. Each time a model in these units makes an attack with a melee weapon, you can re-roll the hit roll.
Wow, that's so good. So it's 1 CP at the start of the game or the start of the?
No, it's 2 CP at the in your command phase, and so just select 2 of these units. I mean, this is before they move, and of course, the Reavers and the Hellions. You're talking about adding 1 inch, so now Reavers are going 19 inches, and Hellions are going 15 inches, and that. If it's turn 2, they're probably advancing because they can still charge. I mean, there's a lot going on there for sure.
I like that you can build this army with all the core tenets of the Codex. Like I think I like stuff all themed. Like an all witch army is cool. Like I think I fought against over the years led by Lilith and all witches pouring out of mobile transports. You're just coming across and just 20 witch blobs of death. Controlling area and stuff. I've played against a bunch of racks and the grotesques, and I know I've played against where it was traditionally Trueborn spam in the past, and Ravagers. But we haven't even talked about Ravagers. Do Ravagers have a place now? Like, is it all about what you can fit in the Raiders, or do you see yourself using any vehicles? Any tanks?
I can tell you, oh man, tanks. That's hurts. Ravagers were, I think,
specifically not tanks. I know, but
well, I mean, okay, I'll bite. I've heard some people call some strange things tanks, but yeah, we'll go with this.
Thank you for hearing me.
Yeah, so the Ravager, in previous editions has been a thing that I think, did really well, honestly. Disintegrators, especially, pre-9th edition, the profile hasn't changed much. 36 inches, heavy 3, strength 5, AP -3, 2 damage. Like, I mean, that was definitely, 2 damage is a lot more of a thing now. But this was something that people saw a lot of. These things putting out 9 shots, their ability to move with no issue, no modifiers. So they come stock with Dark Lances now, which again are D3 plus 3, which I think is a big deal. But the problem, I mean, I think Scourges have kind of outpaced Ravagers now that you can't give Ravagers rerolls in the same way that you could before, because it used to be the Cabal of the Black Heart Archon with the Writ of the Living Muse would sit back, give them reroll hits and wounds to of 1, and that was a big deal. They did really well with that. But since you can't, man, that really makes Ravagers tough to bring. I think Raiders are spot on for their point value. Now that Venoms have lost the -1 deal. Oh no, they still have subtract 1. Yep, it's still there. Sorry, my bad. Venoms still have it, but I still think Raiders, especially with the capacity of holding 11 models, have really got something. And I think that Shock Prow is something that should not be overlooked. So putting a Shock Prow on it gives you access to the Shock Prow stratagem, which and Ravagers could have this too. And I think this is something that's really worth considering, in that when you get to the stratagems, and Shock Prow is 1 CP, use the stratagem in the charge phase when a Drukhari Shock Prow unit from your army finishes a charge move. Select 1 enemy unit within engagement range of that Shock Prow unit. If the selected enemy unit is a vehicle, roll a d6. On a 2+, the unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. If the selected enemy unit is not a vehicle, roll a d6 for each model in the enemy unit that is within engagement range of the Shock Prow unit. For each dice result that equals or exceeds that enemy unit's toughness characteristic, it suffers 1 mortal wound. And so I don't know if you guys have seen the size of a Raider or Ravager, but I can tell you what, when you turn those, so it's really funny because it's like it's almost like the Slender Man thing, right? Like they turned one way, they're barely visible, and then you turn them the other way and they're like, as they're as big as a Land Raider all of a sudden. Right. And so that engagement range, when you turn them on their side, they can hit quite the front with that Shock Prow deal, and so it's pretty interesting.
Question: Tantalus doesn't happen to come with a Shock Prow, does it?
I don't think that's a great.
I'll check
deal.
right now.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I'm about to have a nice hearty yikes about it. See that whole line of 120 boys?
Oh.
Yeah, well, be a sure shame if someone had a 20-inch length model or some crap.
It does not have a shock prow. It has a scything charge.
Okay.
It has blades on
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah. So, but all that to say that I think the real tank and I know this is sacrilegious, because if a Ravager can be one, I'm gonna go off on this. The real tank here, I think, is the Void Raven Bomber.
Oh, fair enough. Before we get too far off the transports, though, I want to mention that, with the Raider being able to hold 11 models now, and that the special, like the heavy weapons or those Chardonnet Impalers and stuff like that don't get unlocked until you hit the 10th unit member of the squad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So you may see more people opting for that because it opens up these special weapons or the heavy weapons and other tricks.
And the other nice thing for all these things, the Grizzly trophies, Paul, I'm sorry, I don't have it. It should be in the equipment right there on that data sheet, the Grizzly trophies.
For which one? For the Raider?
Yeah, sure. Raider.
I've got it right here. The bearer gains the following ability: Grizzly Trophies Aura. While enemy unit was in 3 of this model, subtract 2 from the leadership characteristic of models in that unit. It doesn't. Does that stack?
So because it's a separate aura, like auras won't stack, right? But if you take Grizzly trophies and then you take the Dark Creed, you're now talking about -3 from the leadership characteristic.
So you just need to kill one intercessor, and they've got a third of a chance to kill another one, essentially.
And
from the leadership.
and you also stack that in again. Like this is where I'm talking about some of these like converging assets. You take the Incubi and their Tormentors, and now you're definitely like 2d6. So take a leadership of 8, minus it by 3, you're at a 5. You just got to beat a 5 on 2d6, and now they're fighting.
What did you call it? Converging assets. That's the most interesting way I've heard of saying synergy before.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I've got. You want to hit on some army buzzwords? Let me tell you about convergence.
I was about to say, is that military lingo?
Oh, convergence is hot, baby, hot.
It's the hot buzzword at the moment. Everyone's been saying space in this space. Now it's convergence, guys. It's the hot.
That's right. We're
the Void Raven Bomber.
Oh man! So again, we get back to this, man. This is what I'm talking about. So take the Reavers, you can give them for every 3, you can give them the Grav Talon or the Caltrops, and the Grav Talon, I believe, is the one that they charge for the Reavers. They move in, and when they charge, they get to roll, and if it's successful, they deal mortal wounds. And so you take that into account. You take the shock prows of the Raiders into account, and then at the same time, and that's all in the charge phase. Before that, you get to the Void Raven Bomber, and we talked about this last time as far as the bomb that it has, the Void Mine. Once per battle in your movement phase, after the bearer makes a normal move or advances, you can select 1 point on the battlefield the bearer moved across. Roll 1d6 for each unit within 6 inches of that point, subtracting 1 if the unit has the character keyword, excluding vehicle or monster units. On a 4+, that unit suffers d6 mortal wounds. So, characters that are vehicles or monsters don't get that bonus. But on 4+, that unit suffers d6 mortal wounds. And then you add on, that's in the movement, you add on the Hellions, or really the Reavers' ability of moving over and doing eviscerating flyby that for every time they move over, if it's infantry on a 4-up, they do a mortal wound. I mean, there's just a ton of mortal wounds coming at you, and you want to hit the buzzword bingo with me, Adam. Talk about a convergence of mortal wounds that are happening, and then the witches and the Incubi are going to finish you off in close combat.
Yes. And we haven't even. Did we touch it? We touched on Incubi last week, didn't we?
Yes.
We sure did. We sure did.
Good. Yeah, because that's the combo. Witches and Incubi are the dual, pretty much can be equipped to handle most, if not any, issues you may have on the battlefield. Like, if you need something dead, there's a combination of witches and Incubi that's probably going to get it done for you. And I'm including Succubuses and Drazar in that conversation also.
Yeah, and in shooting, we've talked about the Cabales. Last week we talked about the Scourges with their Haywire Blasters or Heat Lances or whatever. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff, man. It's coming at you from every direction, and you're like, all of this stuff by itself is, you're looking at it and like, man, that's not bad. That seems really well balanced. This is good. Like, there's this drawback to this. It's all, but then you start putting it all together. Like I was talking about, like, how we piece together everything that builds into the incubi, and then you're like, oh my gosh, oh no, there's a this thing's a super murder machine. It's bad.
Did the planes get power from pain in the last Codex?
So they did not in the same way, but it was something that the Cabal of the Black Heart. It gave them it essentially gave them the first step of power from pain. But now that they have it, so like that's the crazy thing, right? Is that everything starts with a 6-up invuln. Like everything. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it's really crazy just how all that stuff starts to stack up, because if that Void Raven bomber is Cabal of the Black Heart, it's now step up in power from pain, and things can kind of run away. So it can
declare a charge in the turn and then advanced?
It could. You're right. I think it comes down to that you start increasing its invuln save.
Yeah, on turn at that point on turn 3, you have a 4+ invulnerable or 5+ invulnerable save.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's nice, man.
Well, I guess, you know what, I'm sitting here saying all this, it's really cool. It already has a Night Shield with a 5-up invuln save. Sorry. Against ranged attacks.
I was about to point that out. But why it's so spicy? Why do you think it's so spicy? I just like its armament. The Void Mine, once per battle in your movement phase after the bearer makes a normal move or advances, you can select 1 point on the battlefield. Oh, did you already read this out?
Yep. It's huge, man. You were so excited about it, you were going to read it twice. It's that good. And we read it last week. That's so the third time. It's amazing.
That's the third time. A good old hearty triple down. Get on it, guys.
Well, I like it for 185 points, especially.
Oh, yeah.
No, this is a pretty aggressively pointed flyer for what it's got with the dark sides, with the invulnerable save, with the crazy movement, with the bombs, with everything. I think you're getting into steel for 185 points.
What do you guys do? So it came up before. What do you guys think? Venoms or Raiders? I'm leaning towards Raiders.
Oh man, I've been a Raider guy before. As much as I understood like the Venom spam movement and everything, I've always been on the Raider train, man. I love those things. I think they look awesome. I just think that I'm a huge fan of Splinter Racks because, again, of course, I was playing Sliskus back in the day. I think they really. I'm not saying they missed it because I'm going to hold out some faith and hope, but they could totally, especially with where Hellions are at right now, they could totally bring back the Baron, who was like the character Hellion. It's something that I wanted to bring up, and we kind of, I know we jumped over it a bit. I think, Paul, last time you talked about the combat drugs, but I just wanted to say with some of this stuff with the witches and we were talking Reavers and Hellions and whatnot, the combat drugs are out of control. And there's plenty of cases where, so like Cursed Blade is a witch cult that is +1 to strength, just base. And so that's putting most witches at strength 4. It's putting Hellions and Reavers at strength 5. And so when you start looking at it, especially with like Hellions, and I'll keep saying Hellions, Tanya, you can't stop me. I know you want to.
No, it's okay. I can handle it.
But the combat drugs, it's totally worth, I think, rolling 2d6 and taking random results.
Because
I agree.
Yeah,
exactly. Okay. Because, I mean, sure, make them strength 6, and now they can cut up, Gravis armor, or cut into Gravis toughness. Add 2 inches of their movement. Like I'd totally roll 2d6 to get any of these things.
That Hypex, that's the add 2 inches of the move characteristic. I mean, the witches are moving 10.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, they're gonna get out of a vehicle, for example, and then they're gonna move 10 inches. Like
+3, 13.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then a charge. We talk about the effective threat range about stuff a lot. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, the stuff will catch up quick.
Man, power from pain, you get to advance and charge.
That's right, turn 2.
Yeah, that's 13 inches coming out of it. Jeez, yeah.
And if they're Cult of Strife with Lilith, they get +1 on the charge. And so if you bring in a 20 witch unit from reserves or from the webway or whatever, they only need an 8 to get there.
I mean, I know it's kind of come through with the. I mean, this is your wheelhouse, Red. This is an army you play. Do you feel good about it? Like, are you pleased with what you're seeing in the Codex so far? And are you interested in getting it on the table?
Oh man, like absolutely. Like I'm so glad that it's always kind of those things, especially, you know, we talked about it last week with the psychic awakening and everything, and it's kind of hurt. There's some cool stuff. I mean, Drazar, you know, we've got plastic incubi. Like, I'm so happy with where Dark Eldar are at in a lot of ways, and the build in this Codex and real space raiders, transports having 11 and 6, like just some of these quality of life things that they've built in, and then the improvements, like, you know, Adam, you were talking about the improvements to the witches and everything, the witch cults. They've just done such a good job that I think I would be doing myself a disservice by not getting my Dark Eldar out and playing with them, just because this is such a good, exciting time. And I'm not going in just for, you know, there are some really awesome competitive builds out there. But like, I'm really excited to see the Crusade stuff. I'm really excited to see what's there. And I'm really, you know, there's not a named character Archon, right? There's Drazar, there's a named homunculus, there's a named succubus. But I think that there's a lot of fun to be had with some of the things that you can explore. You know, we talked about a little bit, I think, last week about mandrakes and you know, looking at them, they have the ability to infiltrate, and they're essentially like Dark Eldar demons to a certain extent. There's just so much fun stuff in this book. But there is a lot of things when it comes to whether it's competitive or not. I just think it's going to be fun, a lot of fun. And it's not something where I'm sitting here thinking like, man, like if only this army had like psychers or you know, so-and-so's got this or that or whatever. I don't need, like, there's so much cool stuff to explore in this. And like you guys were saying when you're talking about the initial list construction, Paul, you mentioned it. It's going to be so hard to fit everything in a given game that I feel like I'm going to have to play multiple games of just playing around with the different blocks to figure out what I want to play.
I can respect that.
It's fun.
I'm
so happy.
I don't know about you guys, but every single non-marine thing that has come out, I've wanted to play so far in 9th edition. I really want to play Necrons. I've got such a hankering to play Necrons. And I'm like, Adam, you've got enough armies.
Hey, they're easy to
restrain
paint,
yourself.
man. Easy to paint, all plastic.
Stop it. Yeah. And, no,
I got a really cool Maverick color scheme I'll share with you.
Dude, the G-Dub is killing it now. Like, this was the one I was really worried about. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, I was really worried about Dark Eldar because, like, okay, G-Dub has shown that they can make an amazing, grindy, resilient army for 9th edition. So that's most of what we've seen so far from the armies 9th edition. Can they
out of
do
the 8 releases we've seen, 6 of them were pretty much Marine based.
Yes, or Necrons or Death Guard, which are all, like I said, resilient, grindy armies.
3 plus armor based, you know, for the most part.
Yeah. What does a Speedy Boy elf faction look like in 9th edition? It looks exciting is the word coming out of my mouth. It's very, very, very good. I'm such a big fan of this Codex, and I'm only just scratching the surface. I think everybody, especially Dark Eldar players or Dark Eldar, you know, sympathizers, you should be excited. This is a good time.
Heck yeah. Well, guys, that's our show for this week. Appreciate y'all joining in, listening to us. Let us know what your thoughts are. If there's a model you're anxious to get off the shelf and on the table. I mean, probably all of them at this point. But if there's something you're particularly excited about, let us know about it.
Awesome.
Y'all got anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
That's about it. It's good for me.
I'm just excited. I'm sorry. I've probably said enough.
Never.
Red, Tanya, Adam. We'll see y'all next week.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Night.
Puts baby in the corner.